Oceanification is an important issue for all of us that care about the ocean, particularly those that rely on their livelihoods for it. Oceanification is not easy to measure. We can't look out at the ocean and see what is changing. Researchers have a number of tools at their disposal that tend to be expensive, bulky, hard to carry around, and difficult to use. So at the Ocean Foundation, we are supporting work that is allowing these measurements to be made in easier manners, including with the new pCO2 to go sensor.
pCO2 is an indication of how much dissolved CO2 gas is present in the water. And so what the pCO2 measurement depends on is equilibrating air with the water and then measuring the CO2 content of that air. This system is handheld. It's powered by a long life battery. It's watertight. You can take it out in the field. The idea is that you can come to a beach, you can come to an estuary, and go into an aquaculture facility and get a pCO2 measurement that is good enough that you can assess, are my waters favorable, so that you don't introduce harmful conditions to your facility.
So here we're working with partners in Alaska, the Eludic Pride Marine Institute, to really get a handle on how to use this sensor and what its limitations are, but also what its incredible possibilities are.
One of the drawbacks of a sensitive, precise instrument such as the Burke Hales is that few laboratories have the financial capability of bringing an instrument like that in. They don't have the laboratory facilities that can support it. They don't have the trained personnel. With this system that measures the pCO2 of the water and some knowledge of the salinity, we can calculate the alkalinity and then determine the parameters in the carbonate system that may matter to you, whether that's alkalinity, pH, omega, which is critical for shellfish such as these. Right now we're looking at a tank of very small juvenile soft-shelled clams that are being cultivated here at the Eludic Pride Shellfish Hatchery, and we'd like to know what the pCO2 of that tank is. We can just take a sample directly from the tank, put on the lid interface, and start the equilibration process. What we're doing here is exposing the air that we're measuring to the water. The water imparts its CO2 content onto the air, and we continue to measure that. The equilibration process makes the air have the CO2 character of the water, and we measure that with an infrared detector inside the pCO2 to go.
For shellfish hatcheries, when your levels get real low, then you can use a pCO2 to go to buffer your tanks as needed. There's a program that was developed called the manipulator that can tell you what dosage to use to buffer your tanks. So after you take a pCO2 to go measurement and you have your inputs, you put it into the manipulator, it can tell you the amount of buffer to use to make sure that your processed water is not acidic or caustic or cause harm to the shellfish. So it's a great tool to be utilized in a shellfish hatchery or any kind of marine research where the ocean chemistry is important to what you're doing.
A lot of the organisms that we're working with actually live in the pore fluid. So clams, they burrow in here. I'm surprised we haven't dug up a clam in making our sampling pit here. So that's ultimately where they live. Ultimately, when they spawn, they broadcast spawn from the seafloor out into the overlying water. And so they're sensitive to the chemistry of both where they live and where the broadcast spawning happens.
Pore sampling using to measure pCO2 or total carbon is relatively new. It's very new. There's difficulties in getting samples that are of quality to evaluate. And so to be able to do it 0 time on the beach and not have to preserve a sample and confuse that sample with the preservatives is highly valuable. The tool might be revolutionary in the fact that it's a relatively easy way to go around and look at different beaches and all the different kinds of habitat there are for not just shellfish, but kelps and all the microbiota that lives along the beach. And the tool is relatively inexpensive, so people can afford to do this and people can do beaches all over the world.
At the Ocean Foundation, we're excited to be able to use the pCO2 to go to provide local communities in many different regions the ability to monitor and understand their local ocean conditions. Please get in contact if you're interested in learning more about this sensor and working with us.